another episode of the Strive for 25 podcast. And I've got an amazing guest today, 𝐂𝐬 with 𝐂𝐬 Portraits. And this is a side business that he has. This kind of fits into our savings equation series. You know, income minus your expenses equals your savings. And again, so much content out there about expenses and budgets. And in my opinion, not enough about generating more income. And Kyle, thank you so much for making time today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, from Jackson, Missouri, 33 years old. My side hustle, as you call it, is I do fine art paintings, more specifically of professional athletes. Been doing that for a little over 5 years. And I'd say within the last 2 to 3 years has really taken off for me.
Awesome. The most recent paintings that you donated or gave away. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I was able to reach out to a couple of St. Louis Cardinals baseball players, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, mainly Nolan Gorman. Created two large pieces of art paintings for them, and was able to go to Busch Stadium and present those to them in person. It's kind of a highlight for my side hustle, being able to actually present those pieces to the actual person. It's always a payoff emotionally to get to see somebody's reaction. But when somebody you see on TV and who a lot of people have respect for and, very good at their craft, it means a little bit more.
That's awesome. So you mentioned, you've been doing this for 5 years, right? And you mentioned a couple of professional baseball players. Can you kind of explain the journey? Where do things start on this kind of professional athlete standpoint?
Always had a little bit of an aptitude for art and a love for sports. I thought, what better way to merge the two than to do artwork of professional athletes? And it's a blessing and a curse that social media is so prevalent and lends itself well to the professional sports world. A lot of those guys are approachable and available on social media. So starting out, just did what I liked. Would pick subject matter that I was into. I was not ever thinking when I started that I would ever be in Busch Stadium handing a painting of mine to a professional athlete. That was not ever on my radar. I really just wanted to get feedback from anybody on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it was. And that little bit of kind of validation kind of sparks you and keeps you going, and it kind of grows like wildfire, and you start to build self-belief. Well, maybe I couldn't get into Busch Stadium one day. Maybe one of these guys, maybe they wouldn't mind having one of my paintings. And then when that kind of first happens for the first time, you're like, oh, this is a reality. We could do this. And the bar kind of gets set a little bit higher each time. You start reaching, starting to broaden your platform a little bit. Not to say that I'm some major platform, but for me, a little guy from Jackson, Missouri, it's already way bigger than I ever would have hoped when I started, for sure.
That's crazy. You mentioned self-belief, building that self-belief. What was that first moment where you said, okay, what painting was it? What was the reaction, or what was the feedback that you got that made you think, okay, maybe this could go somewhere?
I'm trying to think. Other than my mother telling me that I was doing a good job. Just we're very fortunate to live in an area where the fan base of the St. Louis Cardinals is so passionate, and for the large majority, really great people. And so when you kind of become part of that brotherhood, and they see, he's passionate just like us, they tend to root for you and help you, spur you along. I think really the first time I ever posted something to the masses and just put myself out there, whether they were going to tell me, hey, that doesn't look anything like the guy, you're terrible, get out of here, we don't want to see it anymore. It only takes a couple of comments of somebody being, yeah, it's pretty good, you should do more of this, or I'd love to see more of this, or the first time somebody's like, what do you charge for that? I'm thinking, well, I didn't think anybody would even want to buy it, so I hadn't thought about it.
Do you remember that first transaction, that first painting that you sold, that initial one?
Yeah, I do. It was a drawing. I started out doing just graphite pencil drawings before I ever even picked up a paintbrush. And that first drawing was, let's see, it was Michael Walker's aunt. She reached out and requested that I draw a picture of him just as a family member. She just wanted it for her own keepsake. And I thought, wow, said that was close enough of a connection to a professional athlete. I was perfectly set. Right. I didn't need anything more. That was really cool. I thought it was awesome. That one day he might be at her house and be like, "Oh, that's neat. Somebody do that. That's cool. That's good enough for me." So that was kind of gives you the taste of it. It's like I want to do this some more. Let's see how far we can go with this.
So if you're out there listening to this, and you're curious about what these graphics and what these paintings look like, where can they find you?
Instagram is the best. It's where you're able to really view the artwork the best. It's at Kyle Taylor Portraits. And then on Facebook, it's Kyle Taylor Portraits as well. That's a little more catered to the community that follows me on there as far as my availability for commissions, things like that. What I'm up to. Instagram's more just here's what I painted.
Okay. So you have these couple paintings that you give to Nolan Gorman, who's a stud, Brent Donovan, a great utility player. When you look at the kind of the horizons that are coming, because you and I were talking about this before, that you put the work in and you focus on the process, not necessarily the results. Things come, doors open that you may not even imagine. Where do you see this going? What's your dream on where this could go?
My dream would be to kind of break down that barrier that exists right now between my artwork and the professional athlete, I guess. Kind of whatever red tape that there is to go through to approach somebody and say, hey, I've already commissioned a piece of you, or I'm working on one of you, whatever it may be. I'd love to get to a level where my artwork is hand in hand, where they might approach me for the commission instead of me, the opposite. So yeah, just that availability, to get my artwork to a place where it's reputable enough that it can be synonymous with organizations and ball clubs of that caliber.
And I think you mentioned that the stuff you paint is one of one.
Correct.
Kind of stuff. Can you explain more about what that means?
Yeah. So starting out, the goal was monetary. The only way I really knew to put a gauge on success for it was how much money could I potentially ever make off of my work. But kind of through experiences that may necessarily not pay, those were way more valuable than $50 here or $25 here for a print of my work. And I just started to realize that the artwork became more part of an experience for that person and for me. And those experiences opened those doors that kind of stair-step me to bigger platforms. And just it's not worth the $25 off of a print in exchange for this is the only piece of art. I've worked 2 weeks to a month in some instances on this piece of work. This is for you. No one else will ever have it. No one else will ever have a print of it. You own the only one. To me, I think that I hope shows a little bit of value character-wise, and also shows a little bit of value to the actual piece itself. I don't want to cheapen that experience or the artwork.
So to kind of rewind the clock, right? You mentioned that you started this at a certain level, maybe 5 years ago, but you've also got a day job. You got a family.
Yeah.
You got one baby on the way on top of the one where you have. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about the other stuff you have going on with the family?
Yeah. So we are a sister company to a company in St. Louis called Snow Pro Truck Equipment. They specialize in truck repairs, lift gates, full opposite, right brain thinking than painting. I will say I don't know everything about that business, but it's a family business. In the wintertime, we work on snow plows and salt spreaders for different municipalities. It is a very intense job detail-wise. You're dealing with customers who need their equipment, like hard deadlines, things like that. So yeah, polar opposite of painting, requires a whole different mindset. It's it's rewarding in its own way. It's good. It's in the same sense you're watching a business grow, because we started out 3 years ago doing that. Um, so yeah, there's some give and take to both sides of what I do, but they are polar opposite.
Yeah, because you're managing people,
Correct.
and systems, logistics,
Or doing my best to.
right. Right. Um, what were you doing before that role, before that job?
I worked at a civil engineering firm in Jackson for the better part of 7 years. Worked in a materials lab, so you're working on testing soil for foundations of buildings, concrete mixes and designs. Uh, a lot of stuff, once again, that's right-brained, a lot of science, math, STEM stuff. That, and we spoke before we got on here. It's out of necessity. At the time I needed a position that was going to provide, and a position to open up. Did I know everything? Was I qualified even necessarily? Probably not. But I was given the materials to learn everything I needed to learn, and I busted my hind end and I read the materials and made myself adept enough to be dangerous and be kept around long enough.
The right brain versus left brain, complementary, supplementary, polar opposites kind of a mindset. Does that experience along those years of working on that side of things, does that affect anything in terms of how you approach things or what you do or your end product with in the painting world?
I would say definitely working with people in the day job realm helps you manage expectations with clients. In the artwork realm, you're a little bit more realistic. It can turn in a side hustle can turn a little bit into a pipe dream, and you can have unrealistic expectations of what you're going to do. It's good to have a steady, level-headed day job where you don't let yourself get in the clouds a little too much. Because sometimes those unexpected or those unrealistic expectations can be dangerous. You can kind of set yourself up for, well, if I don't achieve this, then just give it up. We didn't do $1 million in sales in our first month, so what's the use? When you work slowly, year after year, watch something grow, you realize that there's steps to it, and you've got to be, any incremental success is very, very good. A lot of people don't even get that, so count yourself fortunate when you're able to make positive strides.
Yeah, I mean, I think that outlook is unique in this environment, because I think social media, this generation, Gen Y, Gen Z, a lot of the expectations are I want things right now. Especially with the smartphone at your fingertips. I mean, you can literally get anything you want in minutes, order something within minutes. And so to have that perspective of understanding that things do take time and try to prepare yourself for the right expectation, I think is important. When you look at managing time, right? I mean, we were talking about this previously. It's like day job, family. How do you find time to work on this stuff?
So it's a juggling act. I would love it to be a scheduled, regimented time. Like on Tuesdays I paint, or on Wednesday afternoons, that's when I paint. What it really looks like is, okay, church is out. My wife and little girl, we're gonna go shopping. So okay, I've got about an hour and a half. I can sneak in there and get whatever I can done, and maybe touch base and be like, hit a couple more stores. Maybe I can, get another half hour in there. That's what it looks like now.
Can you pick me up some extra peanut butter at the store?
Exactly. And sometimes it looks like, had a long day at my day job, come home and like, I could use an hour of just kind of chilling out and painting, do you mind? So yeah, you've got to be creative, because it's real easy to sit on the couch as soon as you get home. Everybody knows, you get home from a long day of work, when your butt hits the couch, it's hard to get back up.
Yeah.
You're kind of playing. So if you just kind of stay in the rhythm, and like we talked a little bit about before we got on here, the motivation of your family, as much as it's a self-gratifying thing to have that side hustle, in the end, I'm doing it for them. That's my motivation. How can I create a better life for them? And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be in the form of hey, we made 200K this year. Let's, we're going on vacation. It could just be as much as like, hey, I got groceries this week. It's on me. And we can enjoy that. That's all it's got to be.
I love that. Yeah. Celebrating wins,
Oh, yeah.
is important. It doesn't have to be, World Series ring. It doesn't have to be, the promotion. It can be little bitty wins that stack up over time.
Yeah, the stacking up is awesome. When something culminates into well, it just goes into setting goals. Really, you just set a goal as a family. We'd like to be here in a year financially. Whatever I do side hustle wise that can expedite time between now to then and gets there a little bit quicker. That's high fives before you go to bed. That's right. Let's do it.
We're doing it.
Yeah, we get that vacation sooner. We can make this investment quicker. And I think at the same time, if you're able to do your side hustle in a way that doesn't take away from the other stuff, if that makes sense. If it's coming at a sacrifice to time with family, probably not worth it in the long run because that time is fleeting. I could paint till I'm 70. My daughter's only going to be 3 for a year, so you just gotta weigh stuff like that. And it's a team effort. Yes, I paint the pictures, but my wife is 100% a part of every aspect of it. She roots me on the whole time, and she helps with the finding time part. She helps me to do that. She knows it's important to me. Sure.
That's awesome. From I find myself kind of going into these patterns of inspiration. That inspiration is there. Whether for me, it could be writing a book or working on social media. Ideas and videos and things like that. I have that inspiration. It's like, oh, I'm going to keep on going. I don't want to lose that rolling feeling. And there are days where it's not there.
Yeah, when you're in the lab, as I call it, when it hits, that's one of those 2, 3 a.m. nights when you're feeling it, the mojo's there, and you feel like you're cooking. But yeah, oh yeah, it's magic in a bottle, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the sports world, like when you have that, when you're in the zone, right? Like everything's working perfectly, everything's in sync. It's just this unique feeling, and then like the next day, it's like, where the hell did that go? How do I get back there? So for you, do you have a routine or a process that gets you there or closer to that in the zone?
For me personally, I look back on prior successes. So anytime, for instance, I've got a commission coming up for a gentleman in Long Island, huge Mets fan. He loves Francisco Lindor, and he's picked out a perfect image. I'm really excited about it. It's got a lot of detail. The intimidating aspect to that is looking at the New York market. Those are rabid fans, right? So, when I post this to social media and tag the New York Mets or Mets Mafia or whatever I do, trying to get exposure, there's a little bit of like, are they going to pound me here? Or are they going to like tear this to shreds or what? So I go back and look at previous artworks I've done. Like, these went well. Have confidence in what you are able to do. You've proven it over time. And it kind of gives you that like, okay, all right, I got it. I can do this. There's nothing. You were scared the first time you ever posted it, but you still get the jitters the very next time. I could liken it to going on stage.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of people on social media, and social media can be ruthless, and the people can be tough. So yeah, just kind of looking back, reminding yourself you can do this. In whatever language, if you're intense, you gotta be like, I am that guy. I can do this. Yeah, just reassuring yourself, like you got that magic, you can do it. You did it once before. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Steph Curry went for 50 points in a game 7 last night. I'm a big NBA fan, and he talked about after the game. Yeah, you mentioned anxiety, jitters. Those guys, yeah, you get the jitters.
I can't imagine.
But like you said, you kind of go back to past works and you realize you put the work in, and the ball drops and it all goes away.
Absolutely.
Is there, when you look back on this process, and in our original talk, you mentioned that you have this skill that you've been able to amplify and build. But what are some of the things along the way that you say, hey, this one or two things really helped you, really find your craft and build your craft to that specialty that it's now?
Other artists definitely find you're not necessarily always going to have a mentor in your line of work. You know, I think people that do have mentors are extremely lucky. So what's helped me is to not necessarily compare myself to artists that I think are excellent, that I have a lot of respect for, but not necessarily emulate, but kind of use tricks that they use, and whether that be styles of mixing colors or using different color backgrounds to make your work pop. Focusing on images to paint that focus on the face rather than the logo on the hat. Using images of specific moments from sporting events, not just a stock image of a random guy. You know, if you type in Albert Pujols, he's got thousands of images. What's going to set my work apart? You know, is it going to be, am I going to choose one just because he's got a smile face, you know, and it looks good, or am I going to choose an image that would elicit a memory from someone who looked at it like, oh, I remember when he hit that home run. But that was a big moment. It's just kind of strategy, and it ties into marketing, and it ties into, you know, you're trying to build yourself to, with artwork especially, get as much reaction, you know, especially a visceral one. You know, somebody's only going to scroll through and look at your image for a split second. If you can get them to stop on that scroll and actually click like, you've done your job.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite one you've done that has meaning to you or special to you in a certain way?
Favorite one. I would have to say it's not even a sports painting. I painted a portrait of Atticus and Scout from To Kill a Mockingbird for my father-in-law. He's a huge To Kill a Mockingbird fan, and it was totally outside my comfort zone. It was I did it totally on just good faith. Just kind of started and said, oh, if it doesn't turn out the way I want, he's my father-in-law. He'll be nice and just still say thanks, you know. But it turned out to be beautiful, and yeah, it's probably my favorite one. Now, as far as experiences, I would have to say, that's a tough one too. Gorman and Donovan is up there. Just the responses that they got. I mean, I think they were genuinely surprised that the size of the work won, and hopefully the quality. Yeah.
So, you know, being around those guys, is there anything you can share with any conversations or experiences, just that, you know, be a little bit insight on that experience?
I would say for the large majority, they're all just genuine dudes. Absolutely down to earth. You know, I've never had a bad run in with anybody in the whole organization, to be honest with you. They probably had every reason to shut the door on me and tell me, get lost, you know. But they've always been accommodating. They've always let me in to have access to whatever player was wanting a painting. But yeah, I mean, they're just regular guys, you know, and it's funny because when I started, so it would have made me 27, 28 years old, closer to the age of some of these players that I'm, you know, interacting with. And now that I'm 33, going on 34, you know, they're just kids, you know. I mean, a lot of them, they're young men, you know. There's really not as big of a barrier or a stardom barrier as you think there would be. I mean, they're just guys, and you know, I'm sure it's a little bit awkward to receive a giant painting of yourself. You don't know exactly what to say, and I get that. But yeah, I have nothing but positive things to say about anybody. Yeah,
That's awesome. From you know, a social media standpoint, you know, reaching out to an organization, like how does that even start? How does that ball and start rolling when somebody wants to, you know, make a connection like that?
I'm telling myself a little bit. So, you know, one of you talk about goals I have or dreams I have. You know, one would be to work hand in hand with the St. Louis Cardinals. That's my hometown team. You know, I'm passionate about the season ups or downs. You know, that's a lot of my inspiration behind why I paint anything, really. I mean, most of the time, if I'm painting, I've got the ball game on, listening to, you know, rest in peace, Mike Shannon, but, you know, listen to the radio broadcast. So I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's you're going through a situation where you want to be hand in hand with the Cardinals, but you also want to respect that, you know, that they can't accommodate. Of course, everybody wants that. So you know, they did that to everybody. It wouldn't be feasible, but one of the goals I had was to become maybe almost like an employee of them with my artwork and be used as a tool to help promote the team. That'd be a dream of mine to do that.
That's awesome. So, you mentioned, family life, finding time. Your wife works, right?
Yes, she's a high school drama teacher, yes, and language.
So, when you talk about goals and talk about, even finances and taking time away from the family to do this stuff, I mean, what kind of conversations do you guys have, around, you mentioned that your wife roots you on and helps you find time. Like, what are some of those conversations like, at home?
Almost always positive. She's a huge supporter and believer in what I do. Eternally thankful for that. Yeah, it's never really a source of contempt ever, and I do my best not to push the issue to strain important time. Yeah, but like I said, a lot of those high five moments of, when I have success, we have success. That money doesn't go to Kyle's fund, that helps the family. It's a lot of, what can I do to help? Let's look at our schedule this week. When can we carve out more time for you to be able to do that? And kind of keeping her in the know of what I've got coming up. Do I have a big deadline coming up? Do I have a big project coming up? For instance, in July, I did some work previously with Miami Marlins. They're coming to town in July, and Sandy Alcantara, who was last year's National League Cy Young Award winner, I'm doing a painting of him. Well, in the process of kind of ironing all of that out, the Cardinals got wind of it, and they're interested in filming that exchange. When I actually hand him that painting, and so to me, that's like, okay, that takes priority. Whatever I got going on, let's hammer this out first. It's got to take full attention. First person to know, that's my wife. Hey, this is coming up. If you notice me a little bit more, intense on needing time to work on this stuff, I'm just letting you know that's what's going on. Keep her in the know. It's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Whatever we need to do.
So you got some work with a Mets player and a fan, I guess, maybe.
Yes, yeah, just a fan, yeah.
So you got the Mets one coming up. I almost said Robinson Cano, but yeah, Lindor.
Lindor, yeah.
And then Sandy Alcantara, St. Louis connection. He was a farmman, right?
Yeah, tough topic for some fans.
Right.
We kind of let that one go. He was
Ozuna trade.
Yes, it was. To keep him around would have been a smart move.
That'd been nice. So, what kind of timelines or deadlines? How does that work when you're talking to these people? What kind of timelines do you have mapped out?
Well, for that one, obviously you're working on a 3-day window. They're only in town for 3 days. And you've got to also consider he may be pitching one of those days, so that knocks one of them out. You just gotta make it work, and that comes down to how bad do you want it. Do you have to work late nights the week before to make yourself free that day so that you can go and not interrupt other things?
Yeah,
it's just what you prioritize.
When is that series?
It's July 18th.
Okay.
Yeah, that's as of right now. That's it's the tentative plan.
So how does that conversation even start? Who initiates that?
It's really just kind of networking over years and years and years, paying off. It goes all the way back to taking a sports management class in college in 2012. Becoming friends and networking with a guy there who ended up busting his tail to make it through the ranks in the major leagues, and now he's I think he's a replay official for the Miami Marlins. Posting my artwork online, him reaching out and being like, "Hey, remember me? Yeah, hey, what are you up to?" Like, well, I work for the Marlins now. And like, we'd love for you to, last year I did a painting of Jazz Chisholm, and we flew down to Miami and presented him with it, and it was awesome. And he was like, "Next year we're doing it again. Let's make it happen." Like, absolutely. So yeah, and it's such a huge thing too. You come across so many people. It's so important to treat that time that you have with somebody. It's so cliche, like, a first impression is made so fast, and you may only have like an elevator pitch to make your point or whatever. I had no idea when I had class with this guy, 2012, that this was, I had no idea, but because you learn to build relationships and network and stay in contact. You never know what could happen.
In your business dealings and running these companies and all that, do you feel like that's commonplace, that relationship building?
It should be. I would put it that way. I think if you're not doing that, you're making a mistake. Not only are you kind of doing a disservice to that person because you never know when you may be able to be a help to them, but also, they could be a help to you. I think it may be industry driven a little bit, depending on what your line of work is. Could be less personable, or less one-on-one or in person even. You mentioned earlier about how a lot of people work from home now. I think if you have an opportunity in your line of work to have one-on-one interactions with people, why not make them as awesome as you can? It's easy to say. You can have tough days where you're like, okay, I don't have time for this, get out of here. But I think if your mind and your heart are in the right place, if you did act that way when that person left, you'd probably be like, I should have handled that better, or you regret it later. So yeah, I think being the personal relationship of, like I said, even with the artwork stuff, it's huge.
Yeah, and for listeners out there, we mentioned you can find some of your work at Kyle Taylor Portraits on IG and Facebook, and this is also going to be on YouTube, and so we actually have a couple paintings in here.
Yeah, brought you with me here.
And these are a few of your earlier ones, right? Jim Edmonds and Ken Griffey.
Yeah, so the Edmonds is probably 3 years old, and the Griffey actually is the first painting I ever did. First time I picked up a paintbrush, so it was the first painting I did.
And that was in what year? 18?
17? 18, yeah. End of 17, beginning of 18, yeah.
Cool. Actually, you know what? Let's just take a break. Let's pull them up here.
Yeah. So this was Cardinal Hall of Famer Jim Edmonds. He was kind enough to sign this for me at an autograph signing. Really just wanted to choose images that captured his face. A lot of the images of him you see roaming the outfield, doing athletic feats. I wanted to focus more on the human aspect, a little bit more emotion of his actual face. A little less fine detail and more focused on the shadows playing off. I believe this one was out of a photograph of him in the dugout. Yeah, just more of a simplistic piece.
Cool. What year is that from?
2018, 2019.
Oh no, sorry, that image. Do you remember?
Oh gosh, no, that would have been old stock image.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So he signed it, right?
Yeah, right.
How did that conversations get set up?
Oh, he was just doing a public autograph signing.
Oh no shit! You brought that in there?
Yeah, I mean, you got kids walking in with their baseballs and stuff. I was like, nah, we're gonna blow this out of the water.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Let's get this Ken Griffey one.
Yeah, sure. Take this one down.
Yeah.
So this is obviously Ken Griffey Jr. This is the first painting I ever did. I worked off of a baseball card. The original artwork was done by an artist, last name Perez, I believe. It was an old Donruss Diamond Kings baseball card. Loved the artwork, loved how he did it, and I just kind of in my mind took away the verbiage of the actual baseball card, just focused on the actual artwork itself. I'd say this is where I generated my style from the most. I would lend myself to calling it kind of a more fluid form of stained glass, kind of breaking each shadow up into its own shape, its own color, its own tone, and then just going from there. I kind of look at people's faces in a way that's different from most. I follow a shadow and just trying to draw that outline of how it comes across the eye, the nose, the mouth. You hit your highlights with your yellows and your darks with your blues, and yeah, just work that way.
Yeah, because I remember looking at the Nolan Gorman one, and that one stood out, and out front of the image in front of me, obviously, but the angles, the way that the angles popped, just it hit hard.
And you play with it as you're painting. So when you put one color next to another, this might be a gentle shadow, but I want to make it pop. So I'm going to choose the next color, the color next to it to be even darker, so they play off of each other. Just as in the way black and white really stand out next to each other. If I were to do all of the whole face in a tone like this, which is more natural to how skin really is, there'd be very subtle changes between the shadows on the face. But when you start choosing different hues and tones that are so far away from each other, it makes those more extreme. They pop more.
Anything else that you want to kind of throw out there from inspirations or techniques or philosophies?
Norman Rockwell would be my number one muse, I guess. I mean, if you look back at his life's work, he was constantly working. Then you look back at kind of his earnings on his illustrations and his paintings, he did extremely well profit wise. But you wonder if he ever got to enjoy it, because he produced so much artwork that if you kind of timeline it out, he was constantly working. And so I try to do that in a way myself, constantly be working on something. Don't take a month off. Not only do you get rusty, but you'll thank yourself later and be like, well, I'm glad I was proactive. And even though I didn't have a deadline that month, I still created something and kept the ball moving.
I mean, but that's so easy to say. How do you keep that going? It's so easy to just take a break. I need a break. How do you stop that natural intuition from taking over?
Just try, because I have taken that month off before and hated the way that I felt afterwards, like I wasted something, you don't want to feel that way again. And I guess the reward of having the feeling the opposite way of, I painted something for no one in particular, posted it on Instagram or Facebook, and it got a great reception. People really liked it. And I had no plans of painting that for any other reason. You look back and I wasn't going to paint anything. And I stayed busy and got a little better that week, painted something, and look, it paid off. It was a positive week instead of just a wasted week.
Yep. That's awesome.
I think once you buy into that mindset, it snowballs. You're like, all right, we're not going to waste any time. If a week can be wasted, it's easily to waste a day. And then it turns into, what can I do today to not waste this day? My deadline's Sunday. I could put it off and do it Saturday night, turn it in at the deadline, or I could get it done today on Monday. And now I've got a whole week left. Deadline's already met. I could create another piece this week.
Yep. And like that, the mantra of fear having a powerful force from it behind it. That feeling you've had a wasted month.
Mm-hmm.
Tapping into that fear, tapping into those feelings, something that you can tap into over and over again.
Oh yeah. And then I think, which you've got two young ones, and we've got one now, but also the kind of mental aspect of knowing, okay, well, when that second baby comes, time's about to get cut even more. So do it while you can, man. Get it in there and be as productive as you possibly can now. You'll find time later, I'm sure, but it's not going to be like right now. You're not going to have this freedom. And so I even tell, young people who are interested in art come up to me before, in college, what advice can you give me? I'm just like, just David, just be productive. That's it. I mean, just create artwork. Someone out there is going to have a taste that likes what you do. Maybe not be for everybody. This isn't for everybody. Somebody's going to like it. And when they like it, they may want more. If you sit there and be like, well, I really didn't have a reason to make anything, so I didn't. But if you're able to be like, oh, I've got a dozen things that I've prepared, you're gonna thank yourself so much.
Dominoes start falling.
Oh yeah.
So somebody that's out there thinking, where do I start? I have this talent in painting or artistic or whatnot, whatever it is. What kind of advice would you give to that person?
Start with what you like. Choose subject matter that you like, that you're interested in. I'd be lying if I didn't think of 5 other side hustles to try before I landed on this one. A lot of people in my area started their own landscaping companies, or they mow yards on the side. Yeah, I could do that. Go buy a mower and pull a trailer and get 15 yards, but I would hate it. I'd be miserable. So I would rather spend my time doing something that I really enjoy, and maybe not making as much financially on it, but having my time feel fulfilled rather than go make good money but be miserable. So I'd say just as long as you're enjoying it, that's half the battle, more than half the battle. If you've got an interest in it, you're passionate enough to spend your free time doing that. I think one, you're going to fulfill, yourself, and I think two, it's going to pay off because you're going to be more passionate about working hard towards that. It's not going to be pulling teeth to put an extra hour doing something you love. You're going to be excited to do it. You're going to think of new ideas. You're going to think of ways to market it, promote it. You're going to be passionate about growing it. Um, and it's going to snowball even harder when you do start to see success. You're going to really be like, okay, this is totally worth it. So yeah, I think the biggest thing, side hustles, like we said, are becoming a growing, almost a phenomenon. Everybody is kind of looking for a way to supplement the income and grow. I think it's so easy to fizzle out and burn out if you do something that you don't have a heart for. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that we talked about previously too, because you went to school for a period of time, right?
Mhm.
In this world. So
Started out as an art major, and funny enough, when you start out as an art major, everyone starts at the same level, whether you're coming as Van Gogh or Joe Blow off the street. Everybody takes the same they call foundations courses, kind of beginner courses in drawing, beginner courses in figure drawing, the beginner courses in color composition. And when you do that for a full class load, 3-hour seminar classes for a whole semester, you're just like, the last thing I want to do is touch a pencil or a paintbrush. I don't want anything to do with it. Well, I loved doing it before. And so I was able to recognize I got to jump ship because I'm going to end up hating what I love to do, just purely being burnt out. And so it's doable. I had to twist it in a way that I enjoyed it still, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it was regimented by somebody else, wasn't a big fan of that.
Going backwards in time, I mean, are there any of those people that you know of that continued on and got into jobs in that world?
I mean, if they became an art educator, I could see that as an art teacher. The term starving artist is very real. You've got to find a very specific niche and find someone who loves your work enough to take you under their wing and put the time to promote you out there, or you've got to have an amazing story behind your artwork, or be just a complete wizard with marketing and social media. Artwork is a very saturated field, a lot of different tastes, and it's really easy to be lost in the mix, I guess, if you will. So yeah, kind of the off ramp there was to become an art educator. And I didn't want any part of that. I had no desire to teach. That's not my thing. I don't even know if I could teach. I don't even know how I could express, tell someone else how to do what I do. I don't. So yeah, that was another wake up call. You have certain standards that you want to live by in life. There's things you want to do and want to achieve. If you recognize that the lane you're in is not going to be able to provide that, change lanes.
Trust your gut.
Sure. I knew that for what I wanted for my future family, I probably wasn't going to be able to attain those goals on the salary of starving artist. I needed to jump ship. Let's find something else. You love art, okay? We can still do that in our free time, but to pay the bills, we got to find something more realistic.
From a social media standpoint, and we touched on that for a little bit earlier. When you started that journey of putting your work out there, and where did you find inspiration? Where did you find the resources? Did you just start and do it? Or how did you get started on the social media side?
Start off real rough. Just a rough iPhone image of painting I did. I didn't know anything about lighting. I didn't know anything about hashtags and algorithms and tagging people or teams. I knew nothing about that. I actually had a thought the other day, if I went back and reposted some of the artwork I very first did, I probably would get a whole new kind of list of people who were interested, because when I first did it, I was getting maybe 5 to 10 people looking at it because I didn't know anything about it. But yeah, as you do it, you grow, you learn, you start wondering you know, those little how-to tutorial videos that pop up every now and then, like, would you like to grow your platform by, you know, so and so many followers? Before you'd think that was a waste of time, but then you're like, yeah, okay, what do I need to do? And you kind of pay attention. You know, not everything is well, most things are, but not everything's a money grab. You know, they're not necessarily trying to just empty your pocketbook. There are some valuable tools out there you can learn from. And you're not just an artist. You're also your own PR firm, you're your own marketing agent, you're your own HR, you know, you manage your own bills, uh, legal aspects, you know, I do taxes for the first time a couple of years ago on my artwork because I had no idea what I was doing there. You know, I wish I had somebody do it for me, but hey, this is just you, bud, so figure it out.
From a standpoint of pulling all this together, right? You know, we mentioned all those things: accounting, taxes, marketing, PR, social media. You know, do you have anything that keeps you organized? Any planning? Any systems or any courses you take? Anything you advise on that world?
I'm just a big list guy. Goals, actions, short term, long term, make a list, put it on paper. I think I showed you in our Zoom call.
Yeah. Yep.
A ritual I have every morning at work is, even if it's the same list from the previous day, I still rewrite it. Each item I write down, I'm giving time to think through. Has something changed from yesterday to today? It's getting my thoughts. You know, I'm putting time into each thing. And even if I don't accomplish it that day, let's write it on the next day. Be mindful of it. And the power of being able to cross something off of a list it's so big, you know, seeing that line go through there, highlighter, whatever you use, like, I did that today. Whatever else happens today, we got that done, you know, all right. That for me personally, that works.
I love that. Obviously, everyone's different, you know, but that it is powerful stuff, you know, and acknowledging those wins, you know, you look back on it. You know, you got a lot of cool things coming up here in the summer, like you mentioned before. Kind of going back to the old adage of, you know, that one thing that kind of changes the way you look at things. You know, Patrick Bet-David, he's got a massive following. He's a CEO of a life insurance company, and he kind of talks about this massive moment in your life. It's emotional, maybe it's a failure, struggle. He calls it a paradigm shift moment that changes the way your trajectory of your life is or may go. Can you put your fingers or mindset on something that's changed, your entire course?
So eventually I was able to do a painting for Michael Waka, for him, at going off of being able to draw the picture of him for his aunt. I eventually was able to actually make a full-size painting and present it to him. The Cardinals were able to do a story on that for Fox Sports. It was like a minute and a half, but dude, it was the biggest high ever. I get to call my family and tell them, hey, watch the pregame. I'm going to be on there. And Jim Hayes, who's he's one of the many voices of the Cardinals. You watch him every day. He's talking about you, and you're on TV, and it's just the validation and you can do this. And look at the arena you're in right now. And this all started from nothing. $2 pencil. What do you think was going to happen? The kind of fire that started, the belief in myself of, okay, we can do this. It's real. It's not a hope one day this happens. It just happened. So are we stopping now? Did you just you okay? You done? We give it up now? Or not giving up, but if you're satisfied, you stop there. Heck no. Let's be on ESPN. Let's do, what else can we do? And you're hungry. You're just like, I want more. Who else can I paint for? Who else can I reach? Yeah, that was it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you got the baby coming what month?
August 6th.
August. So you got a few months here of more time.
We're hitting it hard.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're getting absolutely as much painting done as we can before the baby arrives, because it'll be all hands on deck.
Yep. Yeah. Ooh, I know, me personally, those first 30 days was just a complete whirlwind. I don't remember any of it.
Well, see, you got twins, and see, I was talking to a buddy of mine. He had twins, and we were all kind of sitting around, and another buddy of mine just had they're going to have their second one. I was like, I feel like the jump from one kid to two kids is going to be like pretty noticeable. Like time's going to cut, and you're not able to tag team one kid. You got to split up the time. And my other buddy with twins chimed in. He's like, "You think 1 to 2 is better?" He's like, "Try 0 to 2." He's like, "I had no buffer. It was just instant."
Yeah, there was this moment I remember my mother-in-law would come over and stay the night because Sarah was, breastfeeding at the time and, in and out and sleeping. And so she'd come over that first 30 days and, stay over at night and we kind of tag team because they were up and up all night. And I think it was like 3 weeks in, I was in like this hysteria, delirium, like no sleep. And I was like, Alita, I think I'm going to die. And like, she looked at me and she started busting up laughing, and I started laughing. It's like, we'll get through this. We'll get through it. No big deal. And we're not the first, but like,
Oh no,
not the first, but
good to think that too. Mankind has got come a long way. We're no special people. We got to all the same stuff.
that's all right. Who was your favorite player growing up?
King Griffey Jr. Not a doubt. The dude could rock a backwards baseball hat, blow a bubble, and just hit like 450. I mean, and then he's gonna just air. He's just a freak, and he just had fun. That's what was a really big reason I like Lars Newbar so much.
Yeah,
But he just has a good time. He's always having a good time. I mean, just like in what we do, having fun in your side hustle. I mean, those guys, of course, they get paid handsomely,
right.
but they love what they do. I bet to them, it's not going to work. I'm sure some days it is, but when you love what you do, I mean, it's cliche, but you just have a ball. You never saw King Griffey Jr. without a smile on his face.
I mean, when you get 500-foot home runs, it makes it a little bit easier, but
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Coming up on time, you got a lot of big stuff happening in 2023. Have you put any thought to 2024?
Yeah, so 2024, we're probably going to get a little bit more into upscaling. We talked about the artwork being one of one. We're going to stay true to that for individual clients. If you pay money for an individual artwork, your artwork will be one of one. But we're going to try to look at some artwork, I guess, on a lower price point, and maybe look to make it more available. Because fine art can be expensive. It's not, in everybody's wheelhouse price wise. So yeah, and I'm fortunate enough to be at a place where I can try to do that. So we're gonna take a look at it, see what we can do, and hopefully it works out.
That's awesome. Again, just last thing, for people out there, they can find you on Instagram and Facebook. Kyle Taylor Portraits.
Kyle Taylor Portraits.
Cool. Thank you so much for making time.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you.
Blast.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to see more.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Strive for 25 podcast.